to what extent does belonging to different social classes affect a writer's relationship to nature in the Romantic era? Both John Clare and William Wordsworth were great Romantic contemporaries, both yearning to be close to nature and to find refuge within it. But alas, the way that they both relate to nature and thus their writing on it differs due to their socioeconomic backgrounds. Clare was born to the working class, having a labourer as a father and having basic schooling up until the age of 12, while becoming a labourer as a child himself. Wordsworth attended grammar school and completed a bachelor's degree at Cambridge University, coming from a rich family from whom he was supported by up until his parents' death. Despite both indeed having a lack of monetary means within their writing careers, and Clare being the more successful poet in both of their times alive, Wordsworth still had the connections and family available to continue a rather more luxurious lifestyle of travel and social connection, while Clare had to continue with the position of labourer in order to maintain himself. This essay's focus will be on the exploration of Wordsworth's summer vacation within the prelude and of Clare's The Moors, to thus prove that belonging to different social classes affects a writer's relationship to nature in the Romantic era. Wordsworth's summer vacation is of a return to a place of his childhood. While the piece's major focus is on the memories and emotions invoked within the poet while walking, there are key moments where his relationship to nature is shown. For example, he speaks of a pastoral quiet by Endurance 1. We can see here that Wordsworth's relationship to nature is similar to that of a middle-class mindset, for he speaks of it as if it is something that can be obtained, hence something that can be owned. It also invokes a sense of nature being external to man, rather than man being nature. Furthermore, the use of the verb one helps to further add this layer of ownership to the landscapes Wordsworth is enjoying. It's as if he feels deserving of it after some hard labour. To add some context, said hard labour would have been his thus far time at Cambridge University. From a contemporary's point of view, not much labour at all in comparison to the labourers of the working class, or those plain living people as Wordsworth names them. Clare's poem of the Moors portrays a very similar ideology, for when he speaks of how the sheep heard the swains shout and felt their freedom won, he is speaking of the middle class's claim to nature, their freedom being the land they have acquired through their monetary power, again, won as if it is something that was deserved. Despite Wordsworth's claimed admiration and love for the working class in his prose, it depicts the idea that Wordsworth perhaps perceived himself as more, or perhaps even better than them. Or perhaps, maybe, it was envy, as they are not troubled with the pressures of coming from a wealthy family. Clare's poem is of the saddening feeling of the riches enclosures of land, so beloved and worked by the labourers. They too feel ownership towards the land, for he feels that the enclosure was stripping labour's rights and left the poor a slave. This invokes the idea that perhaps, to the working class, ownership of the land was indeed deserved because they were the ones who were at one with nature, tending to the land, looking after pastoral animals, and overall working it. But perhaps this isn't ownership in the traditional sense. This ideology of slavery to someone else's property could also mean that the working class owned the land because they were one with it. Or perhaps they were an extension of it, thus having not necessarily a claim to it, but belonging. Goodrich and Keegan claim that Clare's writing embodies a poignant struggle to reconcile the two identities of village labourer and poet. One can claim that for Romantics, a poet was the voice of nature, so by Clare's unison of poet and village labourer, he was, in essence, attempting to unify the working class with nature itself as one. They were not and are not two separate identities. Having explored the poetry of two contemporary Romantic poets, namely William Wordsworth and John Clare, from different socio-economic backgrounds, I have thus highlighted that despite having the same admiration and love for nature, their attitudes differ. In Wordsworth's Summer Vacation, it was highlighted that his attitude towards nature was a sense of ownership through academic labour, that his claims to it was thus from a middle-class perspective. In Clare's The Moors, however, it was seen that for those belonging to the working class, nature was something that they belonged to, something that they were one with, hence their relationship with it being a new kind of ownership. So in light of this, belonging to different social classes affected a Romantic's relationship to nature greatly.